Welcome to A Healer in Every Home. I'm your host, Burke Lenahan, and we're here today with Janine Gilarde. Janine is a registered nurse, certified health and wellness coach, and a holistic nutrition consultant. She's received training from the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, the Institute of Functional Medicine, and is currently getting certified as a culinary health educator through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So Janine will be telling us about foods that make up an anti-cancer diet. As a disclaimer, we're not claiming that these foods will actually cure cancer. Janine?
Well, thank you, Burke, for having me. So working in healthcare, I have seen my share of many chronic diseases, including diabetes, obesity, and of course, cancer. I am profoundly aware that there is so much potential for preventing, treating, and even reversing most of these problems through very inexpensive lifestyle changes, including diet. So unfortunately, doctors don't know much about nutrition, which is no surprise. There is virtually no training that they're getting when they're in school. And of course, in research, whole foods get less money and much less attention than drugs do, even though studies show that food can dramatically affect health. I don't know that the pharmaceutical companies are going to fund scientists to study food.
Right.
Where's the money in that? The American Institute of Cancer Research, however, does support the idea that certain foods can help prevent cancer.
Right. So Janine, it can get really confusing for people to figure out what they should be eating. There's so many different diets out there. What do you recommend for cancer-preventing foods?
Well, one important thing to remember, no single food can protect against cancer by itself, but there are 7 categories, fruits and vegetables that help with cancer, and I'm just going to mention a few in each category, so it's certainly not a full list. So cruciferous vegetables, cauliflower, broccoli, and cabbage. We have berries, so raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, alliums, which are your garlic, onions, and shallots, leafy greens like kale, collards, and chard. We have mushrooms, enoki, shiitake, maitake. Then we have lycopene-rich foods. So those are tomatoes, watermelon, and guava. And carotene-rich, so carrots, winter squash, and mango. So the old adage, variety is the spice of life, holds true here. Unfortunately, with the standard American diet known as SAD, how ironic is that? These are foods that we're just not getting enough of.
So true. You know, the typical diet has way too much processed foods like white flour, white sugar, unhealthy fats.
That's right. And if we could just move more towards a whole food plant-based diet, then we would all be healthier.
So I think I'm healthy. Should I be concerned about cancer?
Unfortunately, Burke, we should all be concerned about cancer because the world is just so toxic. After decades on the war on cancer, we've really made very little headway. More than 1 million people in the United States alone get cancer each year, and 1 in 2 people at some point will have cancer in their lifetime. It's really pretty staggering. From my perspective, the majority of all cancer is preventable by modification of lifestyle and environmental exposures.
So I've been hearing a lot about inflammation. What about the role of inflammation?
That's a great question. It can be caused by a lot of factors, too many to list, but one of them is a toxic diet. So when you think about the standard American diet, foods are refined, they're stripped of all their nutrients, they're chemically altered, processed, and because of that, they tend to be inflammatory. 2 of the most common inflammatory foods are vegetable oils like canola and factory farmed animal foods. So foods can affect your body's inflammatory response, and when you have an insult to the body, whether it's physical like a cut or a sprain, or whether it's chemical or emotional, the body will have an inflammatory process to try to heal itself. The problem is that when we get into situations where, things like chronic stress and other things we've got going on, we have inflammation all the time. and the body's always trying to heal something or thinks it's trying to heal something, and then you have a state of chronic inflammation. Like PSA and a prostate is an inflammatory marker. So staying away from foods that cause inflammation and adopting an anti-inflammatory diet is something everyone really should do. After all, prevention is the best medicine, and not treating a chronic illness after it develops.
So do you have general guidelines for people to follow?
Here's what I recommend. The bulk of your diet should come from fresh, organic vegetables and legumes. Avoid the standard American diet, the refined sugars, the grains, the wheat, and GMOs, because these foods and the factory farm meats cause inflammation. Rather than opt for the cheap carbohydrates in the form of processed grains and sugars, for instance, choose complex carbohydrates, so plants. And you also want to be sure to include some whole grains, quinoa, amaranth, and buckwheat, and protein from plant sources. So this might be nuts, seeds, legumes, and also quality protein from animals and fish.
So quality proteins, can you explain that?
Well, most people eat about twice as much animal protein than they should, and animal protein influences the levels of a particular growth hormone, which not only affects the growth of healthy cells, but can also encourage cancer cell growth. Animal products are only as nutritious as the food they are fed and the care they get while being raised. So factory farm meats are predominantly confined, and they're fed corn, which is genetically modified, and this raises the level of unhealthy fat in the animals. So quality protein, on the other hand, comes from pasture-raised, grass-fed organic meats that are high in healthy fats. And when choosing fish and seafood, you want to look for wild caught on the label. Farm-raised fish are fed antibiotics. So to avoid this, just eat smaller cold water fish, so salmon, herring, sardines.
So let's get back to plants. How do they help?
So plant foods, they're the only foods that contain anti-inflammatory phytonutrients. We cannot produce those on our own. They have the purpose of shielding plants from predators, and they provide the vibrant colors in plants. So when we eat those naturally colorful meals, we obtain the same benefits. Plus, they are high in antioxidants, and the antioxidants, again, that are found in vegetables are developed to protect a plant from its damaging environment, including toxins and pollution. So it's really no surprise that they can be used to prevent disease.
So we're talking about food as medicine, which is an idea that goes all the way back to Hippocrates in ancient Greece.
Absolutely. And the good news is that this idea is slowly making its way into our modern world. Approaches like lifestyle medicine, which promote food as medicine to prevent disease. And the case in point, Dr. Dean Ornish, he has famously shown how a low-fat vegetarian diet, along with other lifestyle measures, can reverse, yes, I said reverse, heart disease. He tested a similar diet for men with prostate cancer, and what he found was that men had a drop in their PSA levels, meaning that the cancer was not advancing and might actually be reversing. And when you think about it, no medication can do that.
Great. So what about the research?
There have been numerous studies done on berries, cruciferous vegetables, and mushrooms. Berries are one of the highest antioxidant foods in existence, and that is one reason they provide protection against cancer. They are true superfoods, and research shows that berries induce cancer cell death, lower inflammation, and have proven to measurably slow tumor growth. So when it comes to plant foods, I would recommend going organic for most because they don't have the toxic chemical residues. And you can look to the Environmental Working Group. They publish a list of the most contaminated plant families, and unfortunately berries is one of them.
So what special cancer-fighting properties do cruciferous vegetables have?
Well, many of them are rich in glutathione, commonly known as the body's master antioxidant because it is a high free radical scavenging abilities. And cruciferous vegetables are also associated with decreased risk of breast cancer and have even shown to increase survival in women after being diagnosed with breast cancer. They also top the charts as one of the best foods when it comes to reducing inflammation. And one of the last groups I'd like to mention is mushrooms. So there's an enormous body of research on medicinal mushrooms, the ones that I mentioned earlier.
The enoki, shiitake, maitake, yeah?
Yes. They boost the immune system and fight cancer.
Mm.
And mushrooms are unique in that they contain aromatase inhibitors. These are compounds that can block the production of estrogen, which is helpful in protecting against hormone-related cancers like breast cancer.
Really? So they have aromatase inhibitors, the drug that's most commonly given to women with breast cancer.
Absolutely, Burke, yes. So food as medicine. And it turns out even the most commonly eat mushrooms, the white or portobello, they also have a high anti-aromatase activity.
Yeah.
One thing is to keep in mind, and they should never be eaten raw. So a potentially carcinogenic substance called agarotine is in them. So always make sure that they're cooked.
So how many servings of cancer protective plant foods should people aim for?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned cancer protective because not all plants have the same potential. So iceberg lettuce, for example, offers no benefit. And high sugar fruits like grapes and bananas, they're just not as beneficial as something like blueberries, for instance. So we really do have a choice. I really believe that knowledge is power. And I tell individuals that you want to strive for 10 servings of the recommended plants and vegetables a day.
What?
Yeah, I set the bar high. But, as I mentioned before, no one food can prevent cancer. So you want to aim to include a variety of colors with each meal. And if you're not sure what a serving size is, I like to use what's called the plate method. If you look at your lunch or your dinner plate, 50% should come from vegetables that grow above the ground, 25% starchy vegetables or whole grains, and 25% protein.
So what would be an easy way to fit in all those servings?
Yeah, great question. So I love smoothies. Mm-hmm. It is a great way to kind of sneak in all those plants and vegetables in. I created a quick and easy anti-inflammatory rainbow smoothie. It includes vibrant colors, and it has yellow from turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory spice. Mm. I added a pinch of black pepper just to increase the bioavailability. Mm-hmm. So the recipe I'm sharing, people can feel free to substitute different colors, but for red, I love my organic strawberries. I use 1/4 cup. Green, a handful of spinach. Blue and purple, 1/4 cup of those lovely blueberries. And orange, very simple, 1/2 of an orange. Mm-hmm. And then the yellow, which is the spice. So 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric with about the same amount of black pepper. Mm-hmm. For the liquid, I recommend 1 cup of nut or plant milk. And then you just throw it in the blender and enjoy.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So what would be some good books and websites for resources?
One that I love, I just saw him speak at the Lifestyle Conference, Dr. Grieger. He has a great website, nutritionfacts.org, and his book, How Not to Die.
Which is totally filled with research.
Totally, yes.
Every chapter.
Research-based.
Tons and tons of research.
Absolutely. Same with his website. Mm-hmm. Forks Over Knives. That's a great website. It's totally plant-based. It has a lot of recipes. Mm-hmm. And a book, The Anti-Cancer, A New Way of Life by David Servin Schreiber, as well as the accompanying website, anticancerbook.com, And as I mentioned before, the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, for information about organic foods. And the Monterey Bay Aquarium also has good resources for fish and seafood. That's at seafoodwatch.org.